Stop working on that campaign. Today, we're going to talk about how you should take a one shot and turn that into a campaign. Stay tuned. Hello, everybody. Don Franco 3 here. Welcome to RPG Boons, where we talk about everything RPG and how everything is RP. Have I ever told you guys that dungeon masters and game masters make the world go round? We do. And as the busy person's GM, I want to provide you some very quick tips on how to build a campaign starting from a one shot. That's right. Don't overplan yet because that D&D group might be gone in 3 to 5 sessions. I often refer to myself as the busy person's GM. And the reason I say that is I just want to give you the information that you need to start running those games. Whether it be RP, whether it be statistics, whether it be chapters you must read. I just want to get straight to the point and give you the information. So, based on my experience, it's better to plan for a one shot and then let that slowly evolve into a campaign. So, let's go ahead and get started here. At the beginning of any one shot, one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to want to create some characters, right? And that's pretty straightforward. If you go to Player's Handbook, Chapter 1, pages 11 to 15, you can easily find the steps to building a character. You choose a race, choose a class, you determine ability scores, you describe your character a little bit, you choose some equipment, and finally you get to group together whoever the adventuring party is. If you're running a one shot and you really don't want to spend a lot of time doing that, one thing you could do is go online and look for these character creators. I've in the past have used this fast character creator right here listed on the top of this page. It seems to work pretty well. It doesn't seem to give you any wonky numbers or anything like that, so I really recommend that. I saw that TetraCube came up, never used it before, and I know that D&D Beyond has ways for you to create characters on online there. So it's really up to you. If you want to just pre-generate some characters, give them to your players. This is a method of doing that. Now, next we're going to talk a little bit about backstories, right? So, in the past, I've had two different kinds of players. Ones that develop a very short backstory, as you can see on the left here, not really leaving a lot of information, but it gives me a lot of wiggle room to decide how I want to pursue a campaign down the road, perhaps. On the right, we have a much more detailed background story, which I also really like because it doesn't force me to have to really extend that imagination too much. And I can really pull from the ideas that this person had for their character. That's just in case the campaign starts to happen. For right now, I want us to focus on that one shot because we want to get those players hooked and playing in that game. So let's take a look. Every one shot takes place in one area. Okay, so before you start building that campaign and thinking about the huge part of the world, all the things that are going around, let's just stick to that one shot. Let's stick to that one little place. In this case, we're looking at a small village. There's some farming land, there's some houses, there's a municipal area, there's maybe a sheriff's office, and then on the very back, some type of cemetery there. So we're going to start the players here. For various reasons that you have to come up with, they have all ended up in this little town. Now, why did they end up in this town? There's things been going on in this little town. Maybe they used to be there, maybe they used to live there, or maybe they got hired to go to that little town for these reasons. I'm showing here a situation where there's missing persons, and you can make this out to be a troll that was essentially taking these people. Now, the plot hook or that extra bit that could actually push it into a campaign is who hired this troll. We can also look at goblins. Goblins have been there stealing the livestock, really making the lives miserable for the people in town. And again, why are those goblins there? Were they hired or are they just wonky and crazy? And finally, another one that I would recommend is there's claims of undead in that cemetery. People have been seeing Walking Dead, and in fact, a few people have gone missing as well. Now, you can also at the very end of this leave a clue for the players that could essentially point to somebody in town that could be involved in necromancy. Okay, so now that we've established what stories we're interested in potentially pursuing for that one shot, let's go get those stat blocks. And where I got my stat blocks for this video is from roll20.com. I recommend it. They have a lot of free stuff for Dungeons and Dragons as well as other games, But since we're playing D&D here for the moment, let's take a look at that. You need several NPCs to help guide the players for these kinds of rumors or the things that they saw. You don't need that many because at some point you can say that you're not really getting any more information from those NPCs. What do you want to do now? But one thing I should mention are two NPCs that are very critical for these players. I like to start my players at level 3 because they're just powerful enough not to die very easy, and they do have the kind of powers that make them feel useful and heroic in this game. Now, I'm including here a pre-stat block and a veteran stat block. Now, these are NPCs that are in town. They haven't ventured out because they want to stay in town and protect the people. But these could definitely be used at the end of the run shot in case the players are struggling with the monster there. They could essentially come in, either start healing some of them, or essentially we have a veteran here who can jump in and start helping attack the monster. So now we have all the NPCs for the town. Let's move on to the monsters. So what we have here is a stat blocks for a troll in case that was the route they wanted to go. Now the troll's a little overpowered for level 3 characters. Maybe not really, it really depends, but I like to play it safe sometimes. So what I did here is I reduced the hit points by half, I reduced their bonus to hit to +3, and I reduced the regeneration to 5. For the goblins, I reduced their armor class to 12, I give them 2 hit points, and for every player that there is, I multiply that by 10, and that's how many goblins will be at the lair. Now, I'm not going to have them all horde and attack the players because I think that'll be overwhelming. But you could set squads towards them between the time point that they leave the town to the point that they get to the goblin lair. Now, for the zombies, I'm going to do 3 to 4 zombies for every single player that's there. And I'm just going to have those roaming around in the cemetery. Maybe it's a very foggy cemetery, it's very difficult to see. And we can have those zombies spread out throughout that cemetery. I would recommend that if you want, you can have a boss zombie, double the hit points, double the damage, and that should be sufficient. And again, at the very end, you want to leave some clues in either 3 of these scenarios pointing to somebody back in town. For the villain in town, the hidden person, I chose an Archmage. Now, it's not necessarily an Archmage, but I wanted to use those stat blocks because this is going to be the BBEG, the big bad evil guy. Okay? So this would be a good way for you to end session 1, have some type of clues leading back to town that the players can go back and then start investigating. Now, you don't have to put a lot into that. You can essentially have a clue that directly points to this person and have some major showdown for session number 2. Or if you have the time, you can end it that same day. Okay, so we finished our one shot. We've killed whatever monsters we're interested in, and we were able to kill whoever was the evil villain back in town. What do you do next? Your players want to play more. What do you do next? You're a GM. You make the world go round. But what does that mean? That means you've already had a lot of ideas of what you wish was going on around the world. And we're going to use those skills and apply them to this potential campaign in the future. We don't want to force the players to do what we want, but we want to take some of those stories and have them in the periphery. On top of that, we want to use some of those character backgrounds and try to see how we can tie those into the story arcs we're already interested in pursuing for our players. How do you buy yourself time as a GM? I recommend to start thinking about distances. Not only have you established, some things that might be going on in the periphery of this little town. Now, what do? You want to buy yourself a little bit of time before they get there, and you need to start thinking about these distances. What I'm showing you here are 2 Google Maps that I pulled looking at the distance between Brussels, Belgium, and Paris, France. You can see the walking distance is only 65 hours. That buys you about 4 hours of D&D time to create maybe some random encounters that may occur in between. Could buy you a little bit of time to plan your campaign a little bit more. If you need a little more time, you can think about the distance between New York and Chicago going on foot. You can see here, it's a 299-hour travel. You can choose something in between, but the point is, you need a little bit of extra time to make sure you have some prep time for that story arc to continue and to start pushing down towards that campaign. Your players have pursued one of these story arcs. Now what? Well, you need to start thinking bigger, right? And chances are, as a GM, you've already thought about this a little bit. What I'm showing you here is how I took that little piece of land and I expanded it into an island. I also added a bunch of other potential story arcs that could be pursued. So what happened in my campaign that turned from a one-shot to a campaign? They decided not to do any of those things to the west or south and decided to start heading east and northeast. So what did I have to do? I knew they were going to get to a point where they can leave this island. So what should I do? I decided to create a much bigger continent around that island, as you can see here. Now, this is going to give you a lot more wiggle room, a lot more ways to pursue all those great ideas you have as a GM. So what you're looking at here is I basically took that little island, that continent, and then I started establishing where certain D&D races might be hanging out, what kind of power they might have. I didn't get into a lot of details, but I knew there was an issue between the High Elves and the Drow Elves. Other than that, I didn't want to put in more detail than I had to. I just wanted to show you that you can take that one shot, slowly start building around that, and then eventually, depending on how far that campaign goes, you can have a much, much even bigger and more expansive world. After a while, you have enough time to really build these story arcs, and then even put a little more tender love and care into that map. Here's what the final map looks like for my campaign. As you can see, I was able to put a little more time and I was still able to keep those zones for those different races on the map and pursue those as story arcs. If you've already created this map similar to what I'm showing you here and you already have all these incredible stories that you want to tell, it's okay. And it's okay for you to have those characters come in, be incorporated, and somehow change the events that you were planning to have in your world. It's very important that you're not super attached to it. Make sure that those players can come in and essentially change your world for better or for worse. That's it, everybody. I hope it was useful. I wanted to show you how you can take that one shot and turn it into a campaign. What I didn't expand upon was I've used this exact same map for 5 different campaigns. Different events occurring at different times and have players come in and influence the events of my overall story. That's going to be a subject of another video down the road. For right now, I'm Don Franco 3. This is RPG Boons, where we talk about everything RPG and how everything is RP. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, give me a thumbs up. I'll catch you next time.